Hello, everybody. It's that time of the week. It is your illustrious host, Dragon's Fury and Infernal Drake,
Hope you all been having a good week.
and we are joined by the lovely and the elusive Magma.
Glad to be here.
We are doing another installment of the show Deep Dive, and since it is of the nature of his expertise, he is joining us today. That being the Pokemon. Pokemanes for some of you weirdos, and the Poke People for the other weirdos.
They're all Pikachu.
And they're all Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
So, to catch you up to speed, what we have been doing in this series is a deeper look at what these shows are, what they've meant to us or don't mean to us, whichever direction you want to go with, all the ins and outs and the whatnots, typically starting with me ranting about something and ending with me ranting about something else. So we will gladly enjoy your input upon said things. That being the case, I'm going to just piss off everyone at the beginning. After about halfway through the Pokemon series that exists, it got shitty. They lost all creativity, and what's being fed currently to the Pokemon fandom is absolute garbage. And they should be ashamed of themselves.
Have you watched it, though?
Up to said point to know enough that, yes, you're being fed absolute hot garbage.
What is said point, though?
Halfway through, that would have been...
Because are you talking, like, black and white, or are you going further, like, before that?
Once we basically hit that point where we were on the horizons of basically rebooting the whole story.
So black and white. So black and white. Black and white, I don't think anyone will argue with you on that black and white sucked, because they made Ash a dumbass, even more so than he already was.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, he didn't know his types, apparently, and he lost to a level 5 Snivy. Don't ask how. But after that, no. X and Y and Sun and Moon and all of them are goated as shit. They're goated.
And this is where we have our champion in one quarter, because I will not believe you otherwise. Yeah. Alright, you are coming in kind of loud, though.
I mean, heck, from what I've seen when it comes to,
even the newest Horizons.
Yeah, from what I've seen with Horizons, like, they've actually done a really good job with Horizons.
Mm-hmm.
Horizons is the closest thing that I will concede to of them trying to get their shit together.
Okay. They tried and did.
Yes.
So, good to know. Because, alright, you started, we had a beautiful coherentness, and even that is pushing it, because essentially up to pretty much Black and White, we are basically watching one really badly put together anthology. Half of the episodes have nothing to do with each other. The only thing related to anything is the core three people. And again,
Ash and Pending.
Ash and Pending. And even, like I said, we're pushing it.
I mean, if you really want to get into semantics, Gens 1 through 5, and even I would say upwards of 6 and maybe 7, are a kid's show. It's labeled as a kid's show. It's a cartoon for kids in Japan, in the US, and other places that watch it regularly. Kids do not care, for the most part, about a coherent story. They care about, some kind of conflict happens, the hero gets in trouble, the hero wins in some way, and that's the end of the episode. It was somewhat strung together by Ash usually being like, okay, I'm gonna get all the badges and try to become the champion.
Yeah, which
that's
like the main mission kind of took like a back burner.
You can basically sum up all of Gens 1 through 5 and 6 as that. Is Ash is trying to become champion, he's doing this, wacky shit happens along the way. 100%. So when you're trying to go more in depth to it, there's not much substance to it besides just if you're a kid, you're like, oh, this is fun. I get to see fun Pokemon do battles and stuff like that. There's not much
Pokemans.
substance to it. Pokemons.
Pokemans.
That's really all it is. But once they got into Generation 6, which is the X and Y series, yes, I mean, it still followed the same format of Ash wants to go do the championship, he wants to become the Pokemon Master, he's getting the gym badges, but it started to actually follow a coherent story. At least once you get maybe like halfway into X and Y, like once you got to like XYZ. But and like
That's fair.
XYZ was fire. Like the story was fire, the final showdown was fire, the champion battles, they're still considered some of the best like to this day of the anime.
Well, I'm glad that to some extent they decided to get their take. I'm not giving them the excuse of it's a kids show because the other ones that was running alongside them at the same time had way better of a story and was on the same plot line of the hey, big bad heroes win, and it still was a more coherent story. Because the unfortunately what people tend to miss when it comes to children's programming, just because they don't care about it on the surface, they still fundamentally understand logic. They can't put to words what it is, but they notice when something doesn't make fucking sense because it'll be called out. They just don't have the means to articulate it. So to dumb it down to a point where it's like, oh hey, you're like isn't anything, it's just flashy show, that's what we call shitty like kids programming. And they don't get that excuse. They should know how to do it much better, which is also probably the downfall of Digimon because they made it too complicated.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so,
Tamers and Adventure were really good.
Right.
so there's
like,
always going to be
Ultra-
exceptions to the general, and I mean for Pokemon in that case, I mean, did you watch the original when you were a kid?
yes, because when the
Okay.
original was me as a kid.
Exactly. Yeah. So you watched the original as a kid. Did you ever think of it like again? And maybe for you, yes. But were you ever just like, man, this doesn't make sense. I don't really want to watch it anymore.
Yes, there were times
Okay.
where it's like, what the hell? Like, again, it was you don't sell yourself short of how smart you are as a child.
Yeah.
You
Well,
are
I know
very...
children are smart. I work with kids. I work
right,
with them.
but also like yourself as like when the generations that came around, because the age difference is you again, you may not have outwardly been like, oh, not whatever, but what would have kept your attention was definitely something that if it wasn't kind of like coherent, definitely wouldn't catch your keep your attention, because it's like what's being presented to you is not making sense on a fundamental level. You may not be like, oh, that doesn't make sense, but your brain is like, that doesn't make sense, I'm gonna go do something else here. But those things that are engaging and that stays with a plot, I'm not asking you to give me a dissertation of a plot.
I mean, heck, yeah. First on the route of like that doesn't make sense. I mean, hell, look at freaking early Yu-Gi-Oh! Like they didn't even play by rules.
Again, you're
Whatever was convenient for the plot.
you're giving an agreement of what I'm saying. Like,
I feel like it's like aspects I can 100% like agree with, but there's always kind of like that fine lining between it, because for shows like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, all that, you can always argue that at some points there is a level of coherency where you're like, okay, this is great, I like this, I want to keep watching, it's engaging, and then other parts, it's what am I watching? This doesn't make sense. Weren't they just, in this town, but now they're on the complete other side doing something random?
Yeah,
You
and
know.
like you said earlier, when they made Ash completely forget about typings, it's just like,
Yeah, that
it's
was
like, dude, you have been journeying through how many regions now, and you forgot?
See, because
Y-
at that point with Black and White, because Black and White in the Generation 5 was kind of a reset for the series. It has the largest Pokédex out of any generation. It has like I think it's like 156 or something like that.
Jesus.
Like it is bigger than Gen 1 in terms of the amount of Pokemon. And so a lot of people rag on Gen 5 because like both the games and the shows were just very odd. Like they kept Ash as the protagonist for the anime, but they treated him as if he was a new trainer, where he didn't understand the type chartings, he didn't understand the power of his Pokemon, and so again he lost to a level 5 Snivy,
Yeah,
essentially, with his Pikachu that was overpowered, and they used the excuse that like Zekrom messed with Pikachu's electricity. But
'cause that makes
in
sense.
that case, they could have. Yeah, it doesn't make it. I don't know. It was weird. Like Black and White was like a kind of like reset it. So they took the original show, like the same kind of theme, and tried to run that. Where today that doesn't really work anymore because kids, again, like you said, the kids are smart. Like I work with kindergartners, and I mean these kids could make you say something. They can say something, and you like, wait, what? You know, it
Yeah.
baffles you, but then you're like, wait, it makes
What'd you
sense.
say?
Yeah,
What did
and
he say?
so but in terms of like it being a nonsense show, like I mean, yeah, it kind of is, yeah. But now as the show's gotten older, once it got to X and Y and Sun and Moon, and even Masters, which was like the Generation 8 version of the
Masters was
show,
very good.
Journeys and Masters was like the culmination of the show because they
Yeah,
brought back all the original stuff, but they didn't make it fluff and filler to the
especially
point
the whole
where
champions match.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, you can always separate the big fights and stuff
Oh
from
yeah.
the
Well,
actual
I'm
meat
just
of the
saying like
show.
just everything leading up to that was just
Yeah. So, I
Now,
mean,
I
again,
did
like,
appreciate Journeys because it gave more of a transitive, like kind of a that bridging that gap between the games and the anime of it being like so drastically different otherwise that it's
mhm.
like okay, hey, this is kind of what we're doing like as ourselves. So I did appreciate that because that basically kind of like, hey guys, here's what it kind of like how we imagine what you guys are doing in the game. It's for
Mhm.
everyone else who isn't going along that main path basically. So you had like your main people being like the Ash was like, hey, I'm still trying to get, you know, all of this stuff, badges, blah blah blah, etc. And then you have your
Yeah.
pal over here being like, I kind of just want to finish my collection book.
Yeah.
And I just want to, you know, have all my friends here, which was a great thing to begin bridging that gap between the games, which I think was a big thing that they needed because you are now attracting more people into the gaming again with the show because
Mhm.
it's like, oh hey, I do that, right? And it's like good
Yeah,
stuff,
like,
good
oh, I
stuff.
like to collect, or I'm a shiny hunter, or, I'm not just here for the big battles and competitive play.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really did appreciate that.
I think something too when it comes to the Pokemon anime that what makes the Horizons and Journeys so well liked, even beyond like a recency bias, is that it's different. Because all the way Gens 1 through 7 in their animes, they're all the same plot, the same story. It's Ash is trying to become champion, he's trying to collect the badges. That's the same through every single one. So like when you watched it as a kid when the first, when the original show came out, it was a novelty thing. It was kind of a one of its kind type thing. Oh my god, all the Pokemon, they're so cool. It's cool to see the battles and stuff, and it's like you get, Gen 2, you're like, okay, this is still kind of cool, and it's kind of not making sense, and by Gen 3 you're like, well, I don't really get this anymore. It's the same thing, just new Pokemon. But
No.
where Journeys kind of started that bridge where yes, you still had Ash trying to do his thing, but then you had Go and Chloe who were basically like, hey, we want to do other stuff. Go wants to catch all of all the Pokemon. His ultimate goal is to catch Mew, or to at least
yeah.
like see Mew again. And then Horizons, Ash isn't there anymore, so now they can fresh restart it and give it a new spin. where you have Liko and
And
Roy
boy,
who
do
are
they do that.
yeah, Liko and Roy are trying to do completely different things in comparison to what we're used to with Ash for so long. So it's something different because you run the same thing again and again, and eventually it gets stale. And that's when you start to nitpick the little things in the older stuff to where you're like, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. This story beat doesn't make sense. I mean, heck, there was a pink or a purple Rayquaza in a Gen 4 episode because a Miss Magius decided to make a haunted house. And it's and you're kind of just like, okay, it's funny or it's fun, but you're like, okay, what does this have to do
Yeah,
with the
it was like
story or with anything else?
this has
So it's
fuck all to
like,
do with anything.
yeah, so it's like there's definitely a point where like the Pokemon anime is kind of just okay in its own right, but it's
I'll be back.
yeah, but like it's where the Pokemon anime, it's like okay, you know what's gonna happen. It's just whether it makes sense of how they get there or not. And then once you've put in, okay, the battling or the comedy or the animation, then you can try and build on top of it and be like, okay, well, this generation had really good animation. This one had really good battles. Gen 7 was a real big kicker for a lot of people because it had such a change in animation style where it was more cartoony, like to give that kind of like rubber hose proportions almost, where it's like they could, morph the body and, make it seem more cartoony. And people hated that at first.
Yeah,
But
I
then
was one of them.
but then if you watched it, you're like, okay, this is actually pretty good. Like it had a good story with the character. It had a good. I shouldn't say a story overall. It should have had a good character story because you had characters like Lily who was afraid of Pokemon at first. You had his different classmates who were all trying to do different things, and then you bring in the Ultra Beast and Lusamine and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of
And beware.
changes it. And yeah, well, and yeah, Team Rocket's adoption by a Beware. So, but again,
Oh,
that was
funny
part
stuff.
of it too. A big charm of the Sun and Moon was because it had that more cartoony feel with the art style. It was funnier. They could make more jokes. They could do more slapstick type stuff of Ash getting run over by a horde of Tauros. You know, so
Um,
it's every. I feel like every series has its own little niche that makes it well liked. But again, there's always something you can nitpick out of it.
right. So, putting that out there, that still gives them they the back half still like if they continue the way that they're going, like with
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing with Journey to Horizons, they will make up for it, right?
Yeah.
But that whole middle section, like still Sun and Moon, X and Y, is like all of that is still the percentage of what's good of it and the percentage of is just complete utter bonker boohoo is
Mm-hmm.
too great for me to give it a passing grade. And that's ultimately what it is. Everything is going to have its good and its bads, but right
Mm-hmm.
now, overall, objectively, of what I see of it, is too many bads. And that's ultimately what it is. And so we're not, you're kind of like in the hole trying to build out of it with enough overall good stuff, which we're in a good trend right now. And thankfully I'm still in the loop due to my nephews, um, and just seeing how they're going about and like the shows that they're watching and like talking to my brother and he's like, oh, this episode's or whatever, and then like comparing the two of when we were watching as like kids of the
Mm-hmm.
original like 1 through 5, and then us being like teen young adults in that middle section, which is roughly around your kind of like core generations kick in. And
Yeah.
so being able to pretty much see that true evolution of it, it's like, okay, yes, this is what they're geared towards, but again, what you present, even though it's like, yes, your target audience is kids or whatever, but I still don't want to be fed like boohoo bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Like, like I'm only gonna give you so much leeway of being like, yeah, this is kids programming, but like, no, don't.
Well, I think it's to some degree like because again, it's you can only say so much based on what's available and like from the people that make it, but they know that they have a large adult audience because
Oh yeah.
there's people like me who in my 20s and I still live and breathe Pokemon. So for me, I obviously have a bias because this is like my main thing that I care about and I'm interested in, but I definitely agree with you in the fact that if someone were to come to me and say, "Where should I start watching Pokemon?" I watched like the original, say, 2 generations, and I stopped after that. Where should I start? I would be like, just go to Horizons. If you want to go, you can start at Journeys, but I really wouldn't recommend people go. I wouldn't even recommend people touch Gen 3, Gen 4, or Gen 5. And even for Gen 6 and 7, Gen 6, I would say to start halfway through or even later. Because a lot of like the meat and potatoes of what makes Gen 6 good comes in the latter half. When you have the major story beats with the evil team and the legendaries and the champion matches, and it's the same for Sun and Moon. So, like, again, if for someone like me, I've watched it. Like, I got into Pokemon like during Gen 3 and Gen 4. And to be honest, I didn't really watch those animes. They didn't interest me as a kid. So that, I mean, that tells you enough of like the kind of content that was in them. And definitely didn't touch Gen 5 besides a few episodes.
No.
Just, and that's saying something because Gen 5 is my favorite generation of games. Like, I will live and breathe the Gen 5 games, but I don't like the anime at all. And a lot of people will most likely agree on that too, besides if they're just kicking nostalgia. And so yeah, it's one of those things that you can't really get into it unless you just have that kick of like that nostalgia kick of like, oh, I'm gonna watch the old stuff, and you're probably gonna get bored when you start watching it.
Oh,
Unless you're just really, really giddy about it, you know?
let's not talk about the poor poison that is nostalgia. Oh,
Yeah,
vey,
but
oy
again, you
vey.
start at Horizons. I mean, I've had like because again, I work with kids. I work with kids on the spectrum, you know, autism, and they have ADHD and all this other stuff. And a lot of the time, I'm at their house, you know, and we're finding things to do. And you know what? Half the time, these kids don't care about Pokemon, but I put on Horizons, and the parents want to watch it more than the kid does. You know, and the
It's
parents, even the parents, their basic knowledge is just Gen 1, everything is Pikachu, everything is Charizard, you know. But
that is such a funny
they get
phenomenon.
yeah, but they get more invested in Horizons than their kids do.
Right. Which
So
is
again,
always
yeah.
a good sign. Like I said, they're going in the right direction, and I hope that they keep that up because it that transition, because you could see it on in all things.
Hmm.
People don't really care about the anime of the certain generations. The games are it's I wouldn't say necessarily calling a rift war, but you're
Mhm.
collectively all like, all right, we're like, we're not happy about this. You're going to do it
Hmm.
because it's what I'm now deeming the One Piece syndrome.
Oh, jeez.
You're so invested in it that you're now obligated to keep going
Hmm.
just for the sake of it already has so much
I
of
will
my
see the
time
end.
that yes, it's almost it's I have to see the end just to make everything up to this point okay, and even
Hmm.
if this part of it is not okay. And there was
Yeah.
a hard section of that in the past 3 or 4 iterations.
Yeah.
Um and I was begrudgingly a part of that. Like I was so mad. I was so upset. I didn't even
Mhm.
buy the 2 games of those generations that I was like, I hate it here. It had to be
Hmm.
bought for me, and the motherfuckers who
Uh,
bought it for me
was that
didn't
Sword and
even
Shield
play
or
with it.
Scarlet and Violet?
Yes.
Yes to both, probably.
Got it.
Sean Shield was bought for me, and Scarlet and Violet would have been bought for me, but like they ended up like kind of like backing out of it, kind of deal.
Mm.
Hmm.
And it was one of those things that I was like, oh my goodness. Um,
Yeah.
but you
I
That
know,
mean,
the game
even
coming out later
just
this year, Legends ZA, that actually looks really good.
Legends ZA looks really good. The thing with that's been a big contention with Pokemon is ever since I want to say, well, ever since that Pokemon entered the Switch era, is when there was a steep decline in the quality of the games.
Yeah,
And it was Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. They had major performance issues,
especially
graphical,
Scarlet and Violet.
and BDSP. I mean,
We
Drake
we
can
don't
give
we don't we
you.
don't we do not talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about BDSP.
They should
And
they should have just did a remake of Platinum.
yeah, but it's my hope is that they're taking people's feedback, because for me it's like I enjoyed Sword and Shield, I enjoyed Scarlet and Violet.
Same.
If would I play Sword and Shield again?
Nope.
Maybe not. I mean, I'm only doing like one more extra run just so I can
I'll,
fill out a Pokedex thing.
I'll play Pokemon
And
Sword again because I actually enjoyed that.
yeah, I mean, if you for some of them, you can find things to enjoy. Scarlet and Violet, I really liked because I like the open world aspect of the game, even though I'm like, as much as I don't want to like address it, like I have to like come to the fact that the game looks like shit.
Yep.
Most of the time, the game looks like shit, and it doesn't run very well. You go to certain areas, and your Switch will just decline in frames, like terribly.
For
But
me,
no
it was mainly when I was on the water.
yeah, well, that's for everyone. But for every generation, there's always going to be a divide in whether people like it or not. Like Gen 5, I mean, for the longest time Gen 5 was hated by a good part of the player base, and you had a good amount of people that were defending it. Now Gen 5 is more loved nowadays because they have the newer stuff to compare it to. Gen 6, people are kind of okay with it. Gen 7, there's a divide because they're like, well, it's too much dialogue in the game. But then you go to other games and people are complaining that there's not enough dialogue or there's not enough story. So there's
No one can be
always
happy.
yeah, so it's that thing of no one can be happy. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. For me, I've liked all the games that I've played. And again, I've played through every generation and I like them all. Obviously, there's some things I like more than others and some games I like more than others. But if it really just comes down to how much you can get enjoyment and whether or not you want to keep playing the game.
I love
My
it.
rant
I'm
is
here
over.
for it. It's like it is not over. It is just over for now.
Sorry, that piece is over.
That piece is over. So if you guys would like to be a part of
cue that
part
intermission.
2, be sure to join the Patreon because part 2 will be there. And we hope you enjoyed part 1 of all of this fun dialogue and et ceteras of things from our lovely resident expert and deep diver, Magma.
So
So
Again, I only make these episodes because of you guys, and you guys keep making those views go up, even to the point that I got my own TikTok video on my For You page. So I'm doing something right, and it's all because of you guys. So
I still can't believe that actually showed up on the For You page.
and till next time, we love you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye bye.
bye-bye.